Let's talk about triggers. What I mean by triggers is emotional triggers. This video is a bit different because a lot of the videos that I've been doing recently have been things that I'm either fully feel are integrated, or they're things that I'm working through and I feel that I can speak about them and kind of articulate them well and put on a not a persona or a mask. Like I used to do videos years ago and they were very masky. They were very putting on a front and a performance for the benefit of social media and people that might see them, because there was a hope that people would like them and validate them and say, hey Miles, you're amazing, your video really moved me, it really touched me, and you're incredible, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm actually, for me, these videos are like kind of like therapy, right? They're like a mini therapy session, because I found that talking, which is, psychotherapy, is in essence a way of purging out what one is thinking, which is definitely a helpful step in the healing process if you've got some area of your life that you feel unhealed. But I want to speak in this video about specifically triggers, and an area where I have recognized that I still have triggers. Now, what is a trigger? Well, a trigger, for those of you that don't know, isn't just a character from Only Fools and Horses. That's a terrible joke. If you're not from England, you won't even know what that means. A trigger is anything where you have a emotionally charged response to something another person does or says. So anytime a person has, if you think about in your life, if you can think about an experience where someone has said something or done something, could be somebody cutting you up in traffic, or somebody posts something on social media, or someone comments on one of your posts, or you message somebody and you expect a response and you don't get a response, or you get a response and you don't expect the kind of response you get. All of that is triggers. And this past week, I've had triggers going off left, right, and center. And I will never sit here as I do these videos and make out that like I'm fixed or that I'm perfect. But I will add to that no one is perfect, and I, nor you, nor anybody needs fixing. So one of the things I used to believe about inner work was eventually I would arrive at a point where I'd be fixed and I'd be healed. And I've now learned that, kind of like going to the gym, which is about really working muscles. If you stop going to the gym, your muscles reset and kind of go back to the way they were before you joined. And so I'm now very accepting of the fact that this type of inner work is an ongoing thing, right? It's an ongoing journey. It's a never-ending story. That's a great movie if you're familiar with that as a kid. If you're an 80s kid, you know that movie. And this past few weeks, I've noticed I've been triggered a lot. And so the beauty of being triggered nowadays is when you're aware of the trigger, right? Because there's kind of an unconscious response to triggers, and there's a conscious response to triggers. So over the years, I've had like lots of arguments and fallout and conflict and relationship problems with family, with friends, with colleagues. And I can see it's just been a path of relationship destruction, which is ultimately because there's been a major part of me, my kind of inner child, as it were, that has not been healed and that hasn't forgiven parts of me and parts of other people. And what's really powerful is when you get to a point where you're aware of triggers, I found it doesn't mean that we don't respond or react, but it means that we are more likely to be able to emotionally regulate or re-regulate after an event where we've maybe been triggered. And then we're able to first and foremost be compassionate to ourselves, because what I found often happens is when we are triggered, especially if you do personal development work. So if you watch this video, my assumption is you probably do some kind of personal development work, or maybe you're in our coaching community. So what I found happens when you get triggered and you do personal development work is I found in the past, and I still do now, but not as much, is I would go into guilt and shame. Like, I shouldn't have this response because I've been to Tony Robbins, or I shouldn't have this response because I'm a coach, right? And all of that is just a downward spiral into more self-loathing, self-internal battles, significance, shame, and just it goes on and on and on. So there's a couple of things I want to kind of speak about, which is like, how do you reduce the likelihood of being triggered? And what is the simplest way to do that? And by saying, I recognize I'm making a rod for my own back by saying what is the simplest route, like there's some microwave quick fix to it, but it isn't. But what I've learned about inner work and like fitness really is a lot of it can be very simple, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. It can be very simple, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. So what I found to be the simplest thing to help with being triggered is to do things proactively to help to regulate your emotional state. So for example, often what happens inside the body when we're triggered is we go into a stress response. Now we can go into like NLP speak about, we go back to our childhood and all this kind of stuff. But the bottom line is it creates a stress response in the body where the cortisol level increases. And as a result, that kind of puts us into like fight or flight. Like we're in danger. We're not physically in danger, but our mind and body thinks we're in danger. So one of the ways I've found to help re-regulate is a couple of things. One is meditation, which is really powerful, and I'll talk more about specific meditations in a minute. And the second is breath work. Because when you do breath work, ultimately what you're doing is you're breathing in a regulated way that helps to reduce the cortisol and the stress hormones in the body. So that immediately puts you into a better state, like physically in a better state. Kind of like how if you're, Sati, just before I came to do this video, she was feeling a bit frazzled because Zen was waking up and she had a workout and she feels better now, right? So it's like when you work out, you invariably feel better than before you start. So breath work is really, really important, really powerful. I did a breath work the other day and it was about an hour long online with a coach, and I was like literally, I had pins and needles and I was shaking and I couldn't stand for a few minutes afterwards. It was very powerful and I was very emotional. And the other is meditation, and specifically the type of meditation to do is around that of forgiveness. I've spoke about inner child meditations before, but for this particular one around emotionally activated triggers, it's about forgiveness, because invariably anything that we're triggered by is something where there is a part of us that we are not forgiving. So actually, I think both inner child meditation and forgiveness meditation are both incredibly important. So I'll give you an example. I put a post out on Facebook. Somebody commented. Somebody put something that remained nameless, and I noticed a trigger. Commented, because often the stress response is to defend. I noticed that pattern in me, to defending my inner child, actually. The old me used to just kind of be passive aggressive and just kind of spin it in my head. But now, as I've done more inner child meditation, I've noticed the need to speak up. So the old me used to be very much about kind of keep the peace. Like, so if somebody said something and I was triggered, I wouldn't say anything. Like, I saw a post a few weeks ago and it was from somebody that I, have a lot of respect for. We've known each other a long time, and I didn't like their post. So I kind of said, I thought the post was out of character. Like, I just didn't like it. There was a part of me that didn't like it. And so the old me would have just kind of just left it, because the old me, hates conflict. I still don't like conflict, but I also recognize that by keeping it in would have been me depriving my inner child of the opportunity to kind of express itself. So I spoke my mind, and it was received, and then we moved on. So expressing what you're feeling is a really important part. Like, when you're emotionally triggered, telling a person how, like, I've had a conflict with a particular person that I'm close to for a few months. And last week I attempted to call them to create some form of resolution. And they didn't answer, so I just left a voicemail. And in the voicemail I said, this is what I feel. This is how I felt. I want us to have a great relationship, but there are some things I'm feeling and some things I've felt. And what was really great about that is when I came from leaving that voicemail, I felt infinitely better. Because one of the things I'm a big believer in is that, and this person's a family member, is I'm big against this notion that older people or people that are family members should get like a free pass for being a certain way, right? It's like, they've looked after you for X amount of years, so you should, like, I'm big against that, right? Because I feel that if there's not a mutual level of respect and understanding, then like it just doesn't work, right? It's because if you're in a relationship with the person that you chose to be in a relationship with, and there wasn't a mutual understanding and respect, you probably wouldn't stay in that relationship. And I think sometimes that gets blurred when it comes to, especially with family or people that you by default, or like a work colleague or someone you've got to be around, right? So going back to the original point, inner child meditation is incredibly powerful, because one of the things I found that's really important about deactivating triggers is to identify where the earliest point is where that trigger was created. So like for me, if I feel criticized by anybody, that is a trigger for me, because I experienced a lot of criticism as a child. Like, I didn't have a lot of self-esteem building as a child. So when I feel that I'm being criticized, I immediately am triggered. Like, I will go into defense mechanism every time I have anybody. And it's affected me in like every capacity. Like, I've been on training courses where I'm likely to get feedback that is designed to make me better and isn't going to be critical in a negative sense. And I've shied away from the feedback or left the training early so that I don't get the feedback, which has then been counterintuitive because it's then meant that I've not been able to get the growth that I ultimately signed up for the course for. Fascinating. So inner child meditation is really powerful to build the self-compassion in yourself. And the second is forgiveness meditation, specifically using the Hawaiian concept Ho'oponopono, which was, I believe, invented or first was kind of originated by a doctor called Dr. Hugh Len, who went to a psychiatric hospital, and he, instead of doing any treatments on patients, very angry patients in this particular psychiatric ward, a lot high staff turnover, it was a really negative energy in the place, he decided to start doing meditations and seeing patients a different way. And in a period of months, the energy in the place changed. The patients started showing up differently. The turnover rate went down, and just the energy of the place improved. So one of the things I've been doing at the moment, I'm really starting to work on, is to doing a lot of forgiveness meditations aimed at specific people where I maybe have had or have emotionally charged triggers that are still active. So if you know that there is someone in your life that you feel that you still have some form of resentment towards or anger towards or frustration towards, then the meditation Ho'oponopono, of which there's various different iterations of that on YouTube, just pick the one that's probably got the highest amount of views, and that'll tell you that it's probably is deemed as good. Is a really, really good thing to integrate. And it's something I'm going through at the moment. So it's a real live process. It's not a, hey, I've been through it, I'm on the other side. It's something I'm going through right now, and I'm finding a lot of, I'm getting a lot out of it. I'm still not at the point where I'm feeling like it's integrated, which is why this video is a bit different. But I still wanted to share it regardless because it feels present and real and vulnerable. Yeah. So, last thing I want to say about triggers. Triggers aren't bad. Okay? Triggers aren't bad. Triggers are good. Because triggers are like the warning light on a dashboard of a car. And they're trying to tell you that there's something wrong. And that you need to pay attention to something. Triggers are an indicator. And if you pay attention to the indicator and you take action on the indicator, there's a lot of growth. So don't see triggers inherently wrong. See them as you are your own kind of psychotherapist, and you are curious about why you have a trigger. And instead of just seeing it in black and white sense, look at it through a lens with color and go, I'm going to use this person as a personal development tool to help me to heal the part of me that maybe needs to be healed. So it's a really, really powerful thing to know. See it as a gift. It isn't a problem. Everybody has them. But the fact that you're here suggests that you're a person that wants to use these things and wants to improve and to grow. So I have a huge amount of respect for you for doing that, for being here, for watching this. And that's it. So look, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. I've enjoyed speaking about this. This is a really, really powerful body of work that I'm doing and that you can easily access and do as well. So I'd love to hear in the comments maybe something that you felt that you need to do some work around in terms of deactivating a trigger, and let me know how you get on. All right, that's it from me. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.